Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. Dee, da, dee, die, die. Hello, everybody. We are back with the laws of Challah. It's great to be learning Torah together. We'll do a little review of the first few parts of this chapter of the laws of taking Challah. And but before we get to that, we'll mention who we are learning for. Lalis Shama Avi Mori Moshe Ben Chaim, and for Rafu Shlema, for all the Cholim, who include Naftali Hirsch ben Rachel, David ben Sophia, Lynn bas Pesalea, Maya bat Sarah, Yochevet, Yisrael ben Yochevet, Harriet bat Lillian, Karen El bat Golda Rachel, Yoshua ben Bluma, Herschel Mindel Chaim ben Sheva, Leah bat Freda, Noam Avram ben Mindel, Ruth bat Sarah Goldman, Yitzchak ben Dvor, Dina bat Mindel, Aaron ben Begittel, Miriam ben Shoshana, Daniel ben Dvora, Chaim David ben Esther, Adrian Alon, Moshe ben Sarah, Bat Sheva Bracha Chaya bas Sarah, Rina Bat Etel Nachman Herschel Celia, Chalev ben Tzipora, Avram Shimon ben Sarah Leah, and we wish them, and Liza Chana Bas Dina Ariella, Rafur Shlema. You know, it's good. Let us know when somebody is healing. We can take them off the list. And Chas v'sholom, you know, lavdil, if somebody is, you know, it happens. Our prayers are not always answered, and Hashem has other plans. Let me know as well. The laws of taking challah are important because it is something that we can do today, which is you know, deeply connected to ancient practice, which was when we made dough, we needed to set aside a portion for the Kohanim. There was this symbiotic relationship between the Jewish community and its spiritual leadership. Right? The Kohanim were running all of the spiritual practice in the temple, and but because of that, they didn't have the opportunity to work and make a living. And so one of the things that God did is you know, in the Torah, it explains, in order to make this symbiotic system work, the Kohanim have to be supported somehow. So one of the ways is, if you're making some bread, you're going to take a portion of that for the Kohanim, because they're not necessarily able, they don't have the supplies and so forth to sustain themselves. So we're going to sustain them. Now, we don't have Kohanim that we're going to give this to today, but we're still going to do the mitzvah of separating it. And that allows us, to use that Kohani bread. It only qualifies when you have a certain quantity, right? It's not like you're making, you know, a little tiny amount of bread. It's not going to work. It has to be a certain amount. And we discussed, you know, that there's different opinions about exactly how much dough, and we're going to do the dough, you know, we do it by volume, and discussing the difference between volume and weight. But one of the things that we have to also remember is that all of this comes from the concept of the manna in the desert, right? Where it says your dough and your so if the Gemara in Eruvin derives the amount from where it says your dough in the Challah obligation in the Torah, and this was all given to the Jewish people who were in the wilderness. The connection with the manna, we can't get into all the details again, but just remember that these things are beautifully intertwined. Today, what are we going to do? So I have in my notes here that the minimum amount of dough from which challah must be taken is 43 egg volumes, which is okay. And let's see what that is going to, but today we're going to use the original amount of weight of flour that you're using. So Reb Chaim Na'eh would say 3 pounds 9 ounces, which is 1.6 kilos. The Chazon Ish had a larger determination of measurement, and he said it needs to be 2 pounds 10.3 ounces, which in order to do it. So you need a dough from flour of that much, and then you can do it. So let's do this one more time. Make sure I get it all across to you properly. In order to recite the bracha, okay, so there's 2 levels, right? There's one is taking the challah, and then there's the level of making the bracha. When we're not sure, and that's another portion that we covered, right? When you're not sure how much, when there's a question about amounts, like you're combining or so forth. So then, if there's a safek in the bracha, we're going to hold off. But so 3 pounds, according to Reb Chaim Na'eh, you're going to take challah, but it's basically almost 5 pounds. And today, when I tell people, I just say 5 pounds. Then you make the bracha. So again, 3.9 pounds, 3.5 pounds, you're going to take challah of flour, but 5 pounds, you'll make the blessing. And we just, we're going to move on now. We're in chapter 35, paragraph 7 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. What happens if you knead bread with other things? So you've got your normal, we take flour and we mix it with water, and we have dough. But let's say you're using eggs. Bishar me'peros, using fruit juices. Yesh boy kamas fekas. And now you have a few different uncertainties regarding the obligation of taking challah. So therefore, he says, you should mix into the dough the time that it's needed, you're kneading the dough, ksas mayim, o chalav, a little bit of, we'll get to all this, water, chalav is milk, dvash dvorim, honey, bee honey, o yain or wine, shemen zayis, or olive oil, de'az mafrishi mimenu challah bebracha. If any of these liquids are in it, then you can take challah with a bracha. So let's get into this. So in other words, there is a disagreement among authorities regarding challah, which was, dough, which was made from liquids other than water. Okay, we're not going to get into a thing, but the way around this, if you're going to make a dough, which is mostly from eggs or fruit juice, you add a little bit of one of these things inside it, and then it's good. As long as you have the right amount of 5 pounds, you're going to make it with a bracha. Okay, number 8. So technically, the mitzvah, the obligation is on the owner of the dough. But you can appoint another Jew, an adult over 13 or 12, or woman 12, to perform the mitzvah on your behalf. Okay, but you can't do it without them being appointed. But there is an exception to the rule. So, number 8, mitzvah hafrashas challah shaykh l'isha b'bal zabayis. The mitzvah of setting aside challah belongs to the woman of the home, the homemaker, the woman who is in charge of the house. Let's say she's not at home. And there's worry that she's out doing, maybe she's out working and she's out doing stuff. By the time she gets back to take it, the dough might spoil or something might go wrong with the dough. She can assign somebody else to do it. So here it says she calls it in, right? She calls in and she says, we got to what do you call it? We gotta take the dough. That's not a problem as long as they're appointed. But let's look into that a little bit. 9. Let's say you forgot to separate challah, Erev Shabbos. B'chutz haaretz, if the dough was needed outside of Eretz Yisrael, oichlin b'Shabbos, you can eat from it on Shabbos, even before you've set aside challah. However, you should take over a piece. One must leave over a piece, and leave it in one place. And after Shabbos, take a piece of challah from that leftover challah. The piece that you leave, so you made challah for Shabbos. You're at the table, you go, oh, I forgot to take challah from the challah. What do? So you're going to leave over, you still make hamotzi, you eat the bread, you're going to leave over some of that bread, enough of an amount that you can take challah from it, right? So you can set aside challah, and some will remain for regular use. Deva'inan, we require shayu shire nikarim, that the portion that remains be identifiable. So what we mentioned also at the beginning of this chapter was that taking challah outside of the land of Israel is a rabbinic origin, right? The Torah only required it to be done in Israel. The sages expanded it to the whole world. So therefore, when necessary, like on Shabbos, you can set aside a challah for which you're going to do it after Shabbos. However, if you're in Eretz Yisrael, if you're in Israel, and this happens, since challah is of biblical, it's doraisa, and it has to be separated before you take it, you're not supposed to eat these loaves of bread on Shabbos. Mic drop, right? That's a tough one. You've made these challahs, and now you're going to have to go find some new challah. But it's a issue. It's a doraisa issue. We can't separate challah after the fact, and we can't take challah on Shabbos. You can't set aside your entire dough for challah, right? It has to be a portion of the dough. Okay. Now we'll continue. So Heir of Pesach. So now let's say, and we're going to finish the Sif. We're going to finish the whole chapter now. Then we can go back and fill in a few of the blanks. So now, what about its Heir of Pesach? Okay, Heir of Pesach, which is coming up. Shechaliyos b'Shabbos, which falls on Shabbos. So basically, Friday, normal day. Shabbos is Erev Pesach. Saturday night is the first Seder. Now you got an issue, right? Because you have to have eaten all your chametz by 10 o'clock on Shabbos morning. You know, what are you going to do? So you got to be careful here. V'shachacha le'afrish challah. So you made challahs, you set them aside, you got very early, you have your morning suda, and you forgot to take challah. Yesh b'zeh mevucha gedoyla. There's a big mevucha, there's a big debate, a big dilemma, what to do. Al kain, therefore, sarich kol ish l'zeher b'erev Shabbos. So his solution is, you just got to be very, very careful, Erev Shabbos, which falls with Pesach, to remind everybody about taking challah. Find the comment, and we're going to talk about it later in the part having to do with Pesach. So let's just dig into this a little bit more. That situation where you're at the Shabbos table and you want to know how much you need to leave. So you just need to leave over a little bit more than before. So how much was it? How much is the challah do we have to take? Okay, how much do you have to take? Right? We learned you have to take a kazayas. Okay. Now nowadays it can be, if you're outside, you can do even the smaller amount, but the custom is still to take a kazayas, which is an olive's volume, approximately 0.6 to 1.1 fluid ounces. Okay, so it's just like a little nap. So when you forgot to take challah, and it is Shabbos day, or Shabbos Friday night, and you want to know how much to leave, you don't have to leave over that much bread to take challah from Saturday night. Just what you do is you put it in a plastic bag or something, so that you know that this is the challah that you're going to take challah from. You have to keep it separate. Okay, now you want to leave over a little bit more than a kazais, so you can take from it. Let's say you baked chametz for use on this Shabbos, right? This one before Pesach, and you didn't set aside the challah, right? So you have a few problems. And why does he say it's such a dilemma, right? Because not only you have an issue about taking challah, you can't leave it till Saturday night, right? You can't take challah Saturday night because you're not allowed to own or have in your possession any chametz. So that's why it's so complicated. And the Magen Avram, which you'll see when we learn the laws of Passover, he says, I don't see a way out of this. There's no way out. If you made challahs for Shabbos and you forgot to take challah, it's going to be like what we have with Israel. There's no way out. You got to get rid of the challahs. That's what he says. You have to give it to a non-Jew on Shabbos morning. And we'll learn more about that on Pesach. Do we have any questions?
Not for me.
Yeah, please. Yes, David, you have a question?
Yeah. So the challah that you're taking, is it from the dough before you cook it, or after you cook it?
That's right. Ideally, you're going to take the dough before you cook it, and you're going to burn that portion in the oven. What we do is we wrap it in tin foil, we put it in the oven, and we're going to burn that portion of the dough.
Now, what if you want to make like small challahs instead of a 5-pound? Is it the amount of dough that you're taking from? It's not yet, or does each have it?
You know, David, it's great.
Minimum size, right? Like 5.
Yeah, there's a minimum size. We're having trouble with the a little bit with the audio. It's okay. It's okay. Maybe we'll type in the questions next time. We'll make sure to answer all of them. We thank everybody for tuning in today for our shiur. Please God, we're going to do some more learning tomorrow, and we're going to be getting into Passover real soon. Everybody have a wonderful day.